Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's meeting of Prosperous, Staffordshire on the 9th of the 11th, 2023. We'll get straight into the agenda. Item 1, apologies. Sorry, Jonathan. Got a hot... David Williams. Yeah, Councillor David Williams is on a plane to sunny Egypt as we speak. But I think everybody else is here. Ross is just coming in with his phone. So we'll move on to item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of October. Are we all in agreement that that's a true record of events and I can sign them off? Councillor Hutton and Councillor Kruskonjic. That's far out. Are there any declarations of interest from members this morning on any of the agenda items? If you feel that you need to declare an interest as we go through the agenda, please ensure that you do so. And just a reminder that this meeting is webcast to the internet, so please ensure that your phones are off or on silent. Not naming any names. So we'll move straight on to item 4 this morning, which is Community Learning Self-Assessment Report 22-23, and I'll hand you straight over to Councillor Philip White, who is the leader, the deputy leader even, I've just promoted him, and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills. Good morning, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I have a very strong desire not to be promoted to leader, thank you for the introduction. Speaking of which, I'll just ask the officers who are supporting me today to introduce themselves as well. We are rich in officers this morning, and if you'd like to just go along to your left, that would be wonderful.
Hi, I'm Claire Roberts, Quality and Performance Manager for Community Learning within the Skills and Employability team.
Good morning, Amanda Darlington, Head of Adult Learning and Skills.
Good morning, Tony Baines, Assistant Director for Skills and Employability.
Thank you very much, everyone. So the committee will be familiar with this report. It's our annual Community Learning Self-Assessment Report, which happily this year has been augmented by our successful Ofsted inspection, which I can't resist crowbarring into the start of my presentations. We're over the moon with the good assessment that we got from Ofsted. But this annual self-assessment is essential to the effective running of the service, because this is our continuous monitoring to make sure that performance and the safety of the service and the quality of the outcomes that we're delivering are where we want them to be. So the asks of the committee today are that you scrutinise the performance and quality assurance of commissioned and directly delivered community learning provision as set out in the draft self-assessment report, which forms part of the papers for this agenda item, and to provide ideas and suggestions for future focus or areas for improvement to support the Council's community learning service in continuing to meet the needs of Staffordshire residents. So those are our asks of you today. In terms of the report, I'll highlight a few of the key areas of strength and some of the areas for improvement which are within the self-assessment. So firstly, the strengths. So there's a clear strategy and priorities that are well aligned to local needs with intent matched by impact, and that's evidenced by the fact that we've delivered over 300 courses in 50 physical venues and online with just shy of 3,000 enrolments during the year, an 8% increase year on year from the previous year, with 60% of learners being qualified below full level 2 qualification, 43% from targeted wards, so those are generally the areas of higher deprivation within the county, and 55% of learners declare either a learning disability, difficulty, and or a mental illness. So in terms of our effectiveness at delivering courses, increasing uptake and targeting those groups that we feel are most relevant, we're comfortable that our strategy and priorities are effective. There's good leadership and robust management of providers. We have strong oversight of them. We consult effectively with stakeholders, and the commissioning that we have is efficient and effective. That includes, within the 2023 to 2027 period, commissioning of wellbeing and independence, community and family progression, English, maths, digital, STEM and vocational curriculum areas. So there's an extensive amount of commissioning that's been going on during this period. Most importantly of all, safeguarding practice and policy is effective. A high percentage of learners confirm that they feel safe and happy during their learning experiences, and they know how to report concerns and feel well informed about issues such as radicalisation and extremism. So we're very pleased that our learners tell us that they feel safe and comfortable and they know what to do if there is something that they feel is not right. In terms of learners' improved wellbeing, confidence and development of personal skills, there are high satisfaction rates. So 76% of learners identify improved wellbeing as a consequence of their learning. 40% developed digital skills, 32% developed better skills in English, 18% in maths, and 24% have more confidence to start a new job. And that last one for me is particularly important because although there are many things that people can get from their community learning experience, those pathways to work for those who are not in work are particularly important to me. Teaching and learning within community learning is good, and there are areas of excellent practice within that. And learners are making good progress towards subject-specific learning outcomes, so that can be a variety of things, from practical courses, things like woodwork and horticulture, through to more family learning-oriented activities, such as we've had during the year learners organising a sustainable craft fair, for example, during the Christmas period at a local fire station. In terms of areas for improvement, the areas that we've identified are that we would like to improve the outcomes for learners on English as a second language, so English studies for learners who speak another language, and digital courses, and that's particularly for black and minority ethnic learners. I'll perhaps ask the team if you're interested, Chair, in a moment to talk about some of the work we're doing to improve that. We would also like to improve the effective information and advice for pathways, so whether that's pathways to further learning or to employment. That's part of a broader work stream that we have within skills in terms of improving careers advice and guidance, but we feel that we can enhance that area of the community learning offer. We want to improve personalised learning and outcomes to make sure that the learning that we're providing has sufficient challenge for the more able learners. We tend to find that perhaps the focus is a little bit more on providing scaffolding for those learners who are less able, but it's equally important that we are challenging those more able learners. And finally, we want to improve our effective use of initial and diagnostic assessment, particularly in the development of further English and maths skills. So those are some of the areas for improvement. Do you want to take multiply separately? Or do you want me to just plough on through? Because I've got a few comments about multiply. Okay. As we know, multiply is a new government scheme. It had a bit of a slow start. So we only actually had delivery in Q4 of last year, which is the same across the whole country. Is when the government scheme effectively got going. So during Q4 of year one, we achieved 426 enrolments and 124 individuals participated in outreach activity, which resulted in 43% progressing onto a longer course. So that's all about developing mathematics skills, which, as we know, is one of the key areas where we have people in the county who don't have strong functional math skills. So that 43% progression figure is really welcome. During year 2 and utilising the lessons that we learned from year 1, we've already managed to get 646 enrolments and 162 outreaches. We're working very hard with our providers to improve the effectiveness of the way the courses are delivered, but also how easy it is to access them. And I might again ask the team to add some further comments about that. The Multiply programme ends in March 2025, so the only other comment that I'd make is that we're working really hard to make sure that we get the maximum benefit for our residents from Multiply whilst it is up and running. We don't know what the future of it is past 2025. There's been no comment made about that yet. But what we will try and do is to integrate as much of that into our wider community learning offer. So if Multiply does end in March 2025, that we're taking the best of it and embedding it in our ongoing community learning efforts. And that's everything that I have to say as initial comments.
Thanks for those, Councillor White. Just on Multiply, on paragraph 16, it says that the learner recruitment has been slower than anticipated. So what are we going to put in place going forward to mitigate that? Because obviously you've just mentioned this ends in 2025, and we need to ensure that we've got best value for money and the maximum amount of people going forwards. So just what we're going to do that, and obviously congratulations to yourselves and the team for the good Ofsted report. That's really, really pleasing. Ofsted isn't easy for anybody when they come in, so I'm really pleased that we've got a good assessment on that. So congratulations to everybody that's involved. But if we can just answer that paragraph 16 for me, that'd be fab.
Yes, of course. As I mentioned in my comments, I was going to ask that, I'm not sure which of you would like to do it. Amanda would like to expand on the work that we're doing to make sure that Multiply rollout is fully achieved. I think it's fair to say fully achieved in year 2, isn't it, given we only started in quarter 4. So Amanda, please.
Yeah, so just building on from what we learnt in year 1, what works in engaging our Staffordshire residents into Multiply provision. So we learnt that longer courses are not appealing to our adults at all. They want something that's short and sweet and something that you can use immediately and put into practice, whether that be in daily life or in the workplace. So we've done quite a lot of a revision around our curriculum offer or our programme offer and what actually we are going to be delivering. So they tend to be courses now that are potentially either on a one-to-one. Some learners really need that. Or we have short 10-hour courses. Some go up to 20 hours as well, depending on the groups. And it's being led by those that want to participate on, sort of like putting a bespoke course together that meets their needs. And then in terms of raising awareness of Multiply and our reach as well, we're just doing a big piece of work with our providers around a potential roadshow starting in the new year. It might be sort of February and March time, going across the whole of the districts. Lots of innovation, testing and piloting what we've not delivered before as well. So that's in the early stages of planning. We had a roundtable discussion actually in county buildings earlier this week. Lots of highly motivated practitioners bringing lots of ideas to the table as well. So that they will be opportunities to for people to drop into learning and actually gain some confidence around talking about numbers, just even nattering about it and how you use it in daily life. We're also going to do some direct delivery. We're looking to introduce something called Staffordshire Savvy 7, so savvy surfing, savvy saving, savvy spending, and then having some opportunities for people to progress onto longer, more substantial courses and progression into the colleges as well. We've done another application round targeting key schools across Staffordshire. We didn't get much of an uptake there, so we've widened it across all of the schools. We've done lots of briefing sessions as well to support teaching staff to understand, you know, what Multiply is about and what they need for their school and what parents would engage in there as well. We're finding it difficult to engage employers. That's the same nationally, but we keep reaching out to employers in consultation with them. You know, what do your workforce need? You know, is there some opportunities, maybe doing some lunch and learn opportunities so they're not taken away from, you know, their working hours as well. We're doing quite a lot of work with care leavers now as well. So in the first year, that was really hard to engage the care leavers, but actually all that groundwork that we've done, now we've got care leavers engaged, which we're really proud about as well, and we're getting the younger care leavers as well showing an interest, so that's something for us to be aware of. So there's lots of practice taking place that provides pathways across developing your numeracy skills as well. We've got a really effective communication strategy going out at the moment. There's some case studies, live videos. You should see those circulated this week. I saw the first one yesterday on the County Council social media from Phil that's been using his new skills in every day. Yeah, just not this Phil. Yeah, but it's really good to actually get that message out there from learners as well. We're going to have some learner focus groups, get them involved in, like, how did you feel before you participated in anything to do with Multiply, and how can we get that message out as well? So involving our current learners in the development of any strategy that we've got moving forward.
And if I can just summarise all of that, and the extent of the effort is clear, isn't it? And the point there is that it's providing as many routes as possible for people to engage with this who would benefit from it. So in some instances, we've got particular groups that we want to target because we're confident that there are people within those groups who would really benefit, but we also want lots of open channels so that anybody can volunteer themselves to engage with this and do as little or as much as they want to. We all know it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? Especially the older you get, if there's something that you know you ought to be good at, but you're not as good as you'd like to be. And we're just trying to make it as easy and as open as possible, so that people will engage on whatever level they want to do that at.
And also in year 1 and year 2 so far, we've had restrictions in terms of learner eligibility. And as local authorities, we've all fed that back to the DFE, that actually that's presenting a barrier, because you could have had a level 2 qualification in maths many years ago, but now you've sort of like got a bit of a skills gap, and they've widened the eligibility. So it's any adults, you know, age 19 that want to improve their numeracy skills, so that widens our offer as well. And we're also looking at our own workforce as well, and how we can support them and getting them engaged in some conversations around what do your teams need as well.
Okay, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I was interested, you mentioned employers, because many decades ago I was trying to get language teaching for some groups, and what I found with employers sometimes was that they wanted the learning session to be at the end of the day when everyone was dog-tired and actually were not fit to learn anything. So does your experience with employers replicate that experience, or do you find that employers are keen to give you a slot when actually learners are more likely to be able to learn effectively rather than at the end of the day? The second question I want to ask is that somewhere within the paper it talks about staff absence. Is there an issue with staff absence? Because clearly that can be very frustrating and demoralising for learners if their tutor is not available. And why is there no backup plan when learners are not don't have their tutor due to staff absence? Thank you.
Yeah, the work with employees has been quite challenging. So that initially they show some interest and they can see that it's purposeful, but actually it's releasing the staff, because the staff don't want to do it at the end of the day. So what are the benefits for them really? It's actually getting that message over, which is where I think we need to do some more work. What are the benefits to business and what are the benefits to the individual in terms of progressing forward. But also, if you are an employee and you're saying that you need support, say, with your maths or any other further learning, sometimes it shows some vulnerabilities. And, you know, does it put my job at risk, that sort of thing. So, you know, there's those thought processes that we need to work on. So we'll just keep trying to get the message out to the employers. And I think eventually, you know, we will get there. It's just, it takes a lot longer than we anticipated, you know, in getting that commitment from them. And then in terms of staff absences, we have had that in the direct delivery unit. And it's been an issue, personal issues, some of it knock-on consequence of COVID as well, different things like that, and a bit of a sensitive issue that we had to address within the team. And in terms of contingency, we have tried to appoint sessional staff for that cover, but actually nationally trying to appoint, say, an ESOL, numeracy, English, IT tutors. It's quite difficult at the moment. So we did try some online delivery as well, so we were still engaging with the learners. Some learners were able to do that, others were not able to, so they either didn't have the connectivity or the confidence to engage that way. We've had some volunteers come in as well and support the learning, but it has been quite challenging. And Claire's team within Quality have been supporting some of the developments in that ESOL and IT provision, haven't you, quite intensely through some coaching and mentoring, and also looking at different ways of delivering teaching and learning to keep those learners engaged. I don't know whether you want to add to that, Claire.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, just to add that we've been working with the team of tutors to make sure that they've got a full range of strategies available to them at their fingertips, really, to ensure that learners are engaged, that if sessions have been missed, that they're able to reach out to learners, engage them through perhaps some digital work, but re-welcome them, really reintegrate them into the sessions as quickly as possible so that they can continue their learning, and so that minimises the impact, really, of any gaps that they've had.
I see that somewhere in the report it talks about the need to work more with learners to achieve their long-term aspirations. I mean, clearly, you know, this is what learning is all about. It's about aspiration. And how many learners are you finding need that additional support to go further? Because obviously you'll be doing a lot of stuff at basic level, but how many of your learners are in a situation where you're not really giving them the support they need to make that further step?
A high percentage of our learners come to us requiring additional support, and I think we do put a lot of focus and emphasis on supporting them. So a lot of our delivery was in our supported learning curriculum area, and was it family learning as well. So they've got quite diverse needs, and I think that we're very good at supporting those needs when they come to us. What we're saying is that we need to be getting them to think more for the future and being more aspirational, and giving them the confidence to actually go forward there. And on some of these courses, they're quite short, so they might sort of go on a number of courses before they get to that point where they can start looking forward. So we want to do some more work in that, Claire. If you want to comment on anything that we've got planned going forward around sort of like the information and advice around our RAPA practice that we do as well.
Thank you. Yeah. So we've recently had updated data from last year, which shows that over 96% of learners felt they'd achieved the reason for coming on the course. So that's obviously great news. It's more about then. So they've achieved the first step, if you like, that they were wanting to achieve. It's more about how much the tutors then can give additional support to ensure then that they've got the right information and advice to take them on to the further steps and really keep their sights on those higher, longer term goals, really. So we've been working with the tutors around how they can draw that information out from the learners and make sure they've got the right pathways and signposting towards the end of the courses to take them on.
And just to add to that from a policy perspective, and informed in large part by Scrutiny a few years ago of what the community learning service was provided, we have reconfigured the service over a number of years. Firstly, to deliver more courses that are geared towards skills that are valuable to people in their everyday lives and in progressing into the workplace, but also that constant attention to what more do you want to do, not treating a course as a standalone event in somebody's life, but always being concerned to do that. And of course, that person needs to be ready, willing and able to engage with that. But it's a real priority for us that that's constantly there, done in a way that isn't itself a barrier, because we all know that you need to do it in the right way, but it's a constant priority. As Claire has said, there are some people, and in fact, Amanda, I think you did as well, some people who they do lots of standalone courses before they're ready to talk about what their real goals are, and that's totally fine. And some people will do them, and there won't be anything that we would identify as progression, and that's fine too. But it's a priority for us that we're trying to do that, as well as delivering wherever possible skills that are of broader value to somebody in their lives.
Can I just ask that everyone speaks into their microphone? I know we're quite away, but so we've got a couple of people that are on hearing loops and can't hear the officers. So you might want to move your chairs closer to the table. Sorry, ladies. Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Can I take you back to the KPIs in number 6? And first of all, I'd like to start with I really enjoyed reading the report overall, and I think you've now confirmed that your courses are aimed much more at practical things that will help people in their everyday life. So I thank you for that, because that wasn't totally clear in the report. But coming back to the KPIs, under the community learning, I noticed that you achieved or overachieved against the KPIs that were set. But when it comes to the accredited course, I was quite surprised at the attendance rate, particularly for other known ethnicities. And I was wondering, is there anything that you can do practically to encourage those people to meet the attendance rate that they need to meet to progress? Because if you keep on missing, you won't progress. Because from what you've said, courses are building on top of other courses. So if you're missing something out, then basically you're going back to that step. So is there anything that can be done to encourage people to meet their target attendance rate? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Graham. And yes, attendance is a prerequisite to success in whatever stage of education you're at. So it is very important. It's why we highlighted it as one of the key areas for development within the report. And I did say I was going to invite Claire and Amanda to make some comments on the work that we're doing with regards to that. Amanda.
Yeah, so the manager in that area, along with Claire and her team as well in quality, have obviously been monitoring attendance throughout that year and could see that there was issues within the area, and they put strategy in place. So the strategy actually started prior to actually enrolment, having an understanding of the type of learner that was potentially going to come along to the enrolment session, making sure that we got an effective initial and diagnostic assessment, and we understand their additional needs, any support needs that they may require, and any additional barriers that might be presented. So it could be travel, childcare, employment, etc. I mean, the list goes on. So there's been lots of discussion and a lot of time and effort put into that initial assessment and diagnostic assessment, and letting the learners know what they're signing up for and getting them on the right course as well. And we've also, this year, we've gone through an approach of having some non-accredited learning to make sure that we truly understand the learner to then get them on the correct course for the accreditation as well. So, and that non-accredited learning is about having early success and preparation for future learning. And I think as a consequence, Claire was telling me earlier today that attendance rate has improved already.
Yeah. Yes, the manager has been closely monitoring attendance so far this term, and the latest data that I saw that she'd gathered from that was that the attendance this term is heading toward is close to 80% at the moment. So obviously that's a big improvement on what we had last year, and we would aim obviously to be maintaining that and continuing to push that higher through the rest of the year.
And the other thing that you'll have noticed from the statistics is that the retention rate and the pass rates are both much higher than the attendance rate. So there's quite a bit to unpack there, because that you have to be careful to draw too many conclusions without doing that unpacking. But it suggests that people are perhaps doing work in their own time, even if they're not attending as many of the sessions as they might, and the other question comes back to that one about challenge and making sure that people are doing the appropriate courses, because if you've got people who aren't attending who are passing, do they need to be on a more challenging course? So there's a lot there to understand, but it's right that it's highlighted as a priority.
David?
Thank you, Chairman. I was intrigued looking at the breakdown of performance. Why we have all white learners and then separate from that other ethnicity. You know what I'm trying to say. It would seem to me that we would have some non-white learners that are probably fourth generation Asian or West Indian, yet we would also have, because of the considerable number of Ukrainians that we're actually housing in this country at the moment, that they would presumably be classed as all white learners, but in fact would fall into a much more difficult area when we start looking at the learning needs of people. And so I just wondered why we had the breakdown that we did, because it didn't seem to make sense to me. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for the question. I absolutely understand your point. When I was looking at how to break down the data, I was obviously looking to make sure that I had a baseline figure, so like a sample group, if you like, that was large enough to be a reliable figure. So when I was looking at where to place, as you say, the perhaps European white but not British, obviously a lot of those learners that we have in those ESOL accredited courses are Ukrainian, Eastern European and so on. So I was looking at where to put the groups that would reflect the reality of what we know is happening in these sessions in terms of the attendance and so on, but also making sure that I wasn't presenting data that was based on too small a sample size so that it wasn't actually reliable data. Does that if that answers your question?
Only looking at, I mean, there's a lot of information here to absorb, but just looking at the one area that I've got in front of me, the performance rate, the attendance, the retention rate and the pass rate are all pretty well much the same for other other people and all white learners, and it didn't seem to me that that necessarily saw any change between the two groupings, in which case there didn't seem to be a point in splitting them out as being either non-white or white. And I just thought that we had a much wider problem now than is actually shown in the performance that we've got here. And I just wonder whether my understanding of that was correct, or whether we're actually coping with that in the proper way. Thank you.
The reason that I split that out within the community learning learners was just really to emphasise that where we had people of other ethnicities within community learning non-accredited courses, that their achievement and attendance was on a par with those of white ethnicity. Just to demonstrate that really. As you say, there isn't a big difference within the non-accredited, but it was just to compare with the accredited where there was a difference.
So if I can just add to that, I think there are two questions here, both about the purpose of the reporting, how it's presented. So the first is about having something that's statistically relevant, which is a very fair mathematical point that I think we can all understand. I think the other point is the question of what we're trying to draw out from the report, and what we're trying to draw out from the report is about the quality and the consistency of the provision. If there's a difference in outcomes between people who are white British and people who are not, then we've got to question, have we got the correct level of fingertip feel in terms of the way that we're delivering the service? Are we making it as accessible as it ought to be? And that's fundamentally, I think, the question that we're trying to answer there, and the answer that we have, which is why it's highlighted in our priorities, is that we want to improve our performance in that area. So we can, of course, report on a more granular level, but I think that the risk would be where you have got a total of 161 enrolments on accredited courses, that if you break it down too far, statistically, it doesn't become relevant. We do, I'll just look for some vociferous nods here, but I know we've discussed this in the past. We do look very closely at specific ethnic groups or people coming from a particular country where we have refugees. Ukraine being the most common recent example, to make sure that our provision is appropriate. Afghanistan's another recent example within the county where we've hosted a lot of Afghan families. So we do that, but it's just what's presented in the report here. We're happy to present it in a different way next time if the committee would find it useful.
Chairman, I don't wish to pursue the argument, but I would emphasise that a very large percentage of our non-white population are as British and as you and I are. And I think that it potentially raises issues when we start to look at separating that, and I think we should have great care in doing that. I don't want to pursue that, Chairman.
Just something for you to look at going forward. Philippa.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. It was really useful, lots of information in there, and I appreciate your presentation as well. I just wanted to feedback. I spoke with a couple of people that have actually participated in the community service wellbeing side of the online courses and face-to-face delivery, and they were really pleased. They got a lot out of it mentally and physically, but what I wanted to let you know was it was the provider actually brought in other companies to come and talk to these people, and that was what was really beneficial. They actually got to see how they could go on to be part of the Forestry Commission and be a forest worker, and that was really helpful because they could see the progression that they could go from doing this baseline course and a bit of mental health and well-being, and if this was somewhere that they wanted to drive their career. So I just wanted to say thank you, really, it was beneficial.
That's brilliant, and those lived experiences are the whole point of this, so that's great to hear. No surprise it would be the Forestry Commission in Cannock, but that's absolutely fantastic, thank you.
Michael?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report, and congratulations on the Ofsted result. If I may, I'd like to comment on the fact that the report seems to be gender neutral, and I'd like to ask a number of simple questions, really. Is there an issue for some families where a person in a rather sort of small tutorial situation, one-to-one or closer, requires somebody of the same gender to be the tutor, first of all, and is that an issue sometimes? Secondly, have you looked at possible variations in performance between male and female students? And thirdly, is there a hangover of the past, if I can put it like that, whereby more importance is given to male performance in STEM subjects than female performance in STEM subjects? And is there a sort of one-size-fits-all, or is it genuinely gender-neutral, the programme and the outreach in those areas? Thank you. Thank you.
Amanda, are you going to...
Yeah.
In terms of where individuals might ask for the same sex tutor, teacher with them, I think we had one request for that this year. We couldn't offer that at the time for the service that they wanted to engage in. And we signposted them to another provider. They were quite happy with that. So their need and request was met. In terms of male and female, we do have a benchmark for increasing the number of males that actually engage in our provision. I think we're above the national benchmark for that, aren't we?
Just slightly, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're about 28% or something like that. So we're really, really pleased about that. So a high percentage of our learners are female. In terms of looking at the performance around that, Claire, have we done much on the performance on gender?
Yeah, there's no statistical difference between the achievement of males and females on courses. So both groups achieve well on the courses, which is obviously great to see. And just in terms of the talking about the subjects and so on, I know that we have had quite a number of males obviously on the family learning courses, which is great to see, and again on the STEM courses where there may be a perception that would be more interesting to male learners. Again, we've also had a really good mix. So for example, there's a school who've done some STEM courses around electronics, and they've been really pleased to have an equal number of mums and dads come along to those courses, those family learning courses. And again, within another one of our STEM providers, they've really supported a wide range of learners to progress onto those STEM courses. So again, they've had a good mix of male and female learners on those courses due to the support that they've put in place to lead learners on, regardless of their gender.
Through you, Chair, would it be useful for the committee if we did draw that out in future reports? Because I think the reason why it's not is clear, which is that we actually have a good and balanced provision in that respect. But the purpose of this annual self-assessment is that we're not making assumptions about things. So to me, it appears something that we could usefully include, even if it's to confirm that good performance continues. Would you like that?
I think that would be helpful for members, even if it's just as a footnote, so that we can see the difference, because a number of members have asked that kind of question. So yeah, I think it would be useful going forwards. Graham.
Anything on stats and benchmarking is incredibly useful because it allows us as a committee to see where you are, not just here in Staffordshire, but in comparison to similar counties, largely rural with some large urban centres. It just allows us to see where you are in the mix, because obviously we'd like you to be always in the upper quartile. And if you're not in the upper quartile, that's when we're going to start digging. Thank you.
Okay, so we can look at some statistical neighbour reporting as well, where there are direct comparisons that we can draw across. That's absolutely fine and a sensible request.
Philip?
Thank you, Chair. I've been working in education now for the last 10 years with special educational needs and disabled children, and I'm particularly mentoring maths English, science. And trying to get across to our students that, because they keep saying, why have I got to learn maths here? Why have I got to learn English there? And I'm saying, well, it's a legal requirement that you have to pass up to grade 4 maths by the time you leave education, and if not, you have to go on to college and carry on. But there will be people that will fall through the net, and it's nice to see that we've got a 19 plus area to teach people this. So what is the uptake of SEND people that come to our courses, and how do we encourage people to come and learn? I mean, we tell them that you really need maths and English, because lots of employers, if you can't tick the box to say you have GCSE English and maths, a lot of the time you're out on the paper sift before you start, and it seems to, and it's, I don't want our young people to be written off, which is a big fright that they have, but they get to a stage in life where suddenly the penny drops, and then they understand, well actually our teachers were right when they spoke to us years ago. So at 19, hopefully they've got a change of attitude towards English, maths, and subjects like that to gain employment. And we keep saying to them, you need to gain employment to buy the things that you want in life. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, I see that we do a Families First course, which I thoroughly think that we need. Do we include, so we're in a bit of an economic crisis at the moment for everybody. Everybody's feeling the pinch. And a lot of the time, some of the issues we have is choices. How do we educate our people to make the right choices for their family, rather than us hand out things all the time? Because sometimes it's a matter of choice, and if we can encourage people to make the right choices, we'll help them and help the country as a whole. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of our learners are within our supported learning area. I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head at the moment. About a third of those. I think those learners with the difficulties still have struggled a lot of their adult life around sort of English, maths and digital, and just general everyday life skills, dare I say. And hopefully you'll see the short video clip of Phil this week that's going out, and he's actually saying that, without actually developing his skills, he would never be able to do this himself. He's now got the confidence to do it, and he doesn't have to rely on somebody else to support him. He's got a better understanding. And I think one of the key messages, I think I've watched the video about 10 times so far, is you have to give it a go. And I think he's found his time, if that makes sense. And for some people, it takes a while, doesn't it? And with regards 19 plus, I know you've mentioned that. Yes, it's great. But with our outreach provision that we do on Multiply, we can engage some younger people in that as well. So we're making sure we're being, creative with that opportunity as well to support people. The other question was, sorry.
Choices for families.
And choices for families about making the right choices as well. And I know you've mentioned Families First, the Family Hub. We've worked with them for quite a long time now internally to deliver some very targeted provision, and a lot of those families get additional support to make those correct choices moving forward, and that can be where you have different organisations coming in and support mechanisms that make that happen as well. There's things around budgeting as well. Cost of living at the moment is a big thing for them. So we're looking at some opportunities for some additional delivery and us actually funding that to happen to support families. We do quite a lot of what is your intention in terms of your future learning and your future aspirations. We need to now actually support them in making that happen, and I think we're in a positive situation to do that.
The one thing that I'll add is that one of the purposes of the community learning offer is to provide a route back in for people who've fallen out of education. But it's not the point of discussion for today, but it may be a point of discussion for the committee in the future, is we are concerned that there is a rise in the number of people, young people not in education, employment or training. That's a national problem. It's also a problem in Staffordshire that those numbers are increasing. Tony's team is doing a considerable amount of work in terms of what we can do to improve our performance in Staffordshire. We've historically had really strong performance. So the number of NEETs in Staffordshire is well below the average for our statistical neighbours, but we're seeing that number increasing. So at the appropriate juncture, I would welcome the opportunity to bring that work here for you to scrutinise it. These routes back are really important, but if you can get somebody who's continuing on that learning journey uninterrupted, that's far, far better.
Any further questions? No? Okay, so we've got two recommendations today. A is to scrutinise the performance and quality assurance of commissioned and directly delivered community learning provision as set out in the draft self-assessment report. And B, provide ideas and suggestions for future focus or areas for improvement to support the Council's community learning service in continuing to meet the needs of Staffordshire residents. I think we've given you plenty to go away with, Philip and team. Are we in agreement with those two recommendations? Thank you very much, and thank you for your attendance this morning. And again, good luck, well done in your achievements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been really helpful to us. Thank you.
And we'll move straight on to item 5. We'll just let the team take their seats, which is the annual Street Works Permit Scheme Reports and Draft Traffic and Network Management Plan. Now, as I said at the start of the meeting, we don't have the cabinet member, David Williams, here this morning, and his support member, Robert Pritchard, is unfortunately having some teeth out. So we have got Lee and team, and I'm sure they'll have the answers to any questions moving forward. So over to you guys.
Morning, Chair, committee members. I'll just briefly introduce it and then I'll hand over to Lee and Hayley to do a presentation. So, just the committee members will recall that on the 1st of April 2020, County Council enacted powers under the Traffic Management Act to become a highway permitting authority. The principal aim of that was to enable better management of activities on our highway network, in particular to improve the Council's ability to be able to coordinate utility companies' activities together with the County Council's own roadworks to be able to minimise disruption and congestion that occurs on the road network. Excuse me, I'm a little bit out of breath. I've ran across from SP1. The report today is presenting an outline of the performance of achievements since launching that permitting scheme back in April 2020, and evaluation of whether those objectives are being achieved. It's also about providing the insight to help shape and steer the format and contents of the future traffic and network management plan. So on that introduction, I will hand over to Hayley and Lee. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Hayley Fletcher. I'm with my colleague Lee Barnard today. We are the traffic and network managers who oversee the traffic and network management team. Today I'm here to outline the journey towards becoming a permitting authority and the performance of the Streetworks permitting scheme to date following the transition from being a noticing authority. So the benefits, successes and areas of focus for future years detailed in the reports will be touched upon in the slide pack we're about to go through. I will also explain how the scheme is supporting and driving the right behaviours and considerations with the various utility companies and how this has and will continue to improve the experience of road users of Staffordshire with regards to delays and disruption caused by temporary roadworks and activities. I will also be asking for initial comments around the proposed topics and structure of the Traffic and Network Management Plan, which will be a new policy document that will sit alongside the Highways Infrastructure Asset Management Plan. Okay. So to start with, to give you a bit of context, I'll be outlining the journey we have undertaken in recent years to becoming a permitting authority and how the team have been restructured to improve the delivery of our statutory duties and various functions. So, as you can see from the slide, the journey has taken place over a 10-year period, so it's been quite a long time in the making. This was when the initial proposal to consider becoming a permit authority was first brought to Cabinet in October 2013. Efforts to encourage collaboration and communication while still operating under Streetworks notices were carried out under Project Heineken, with positive results and engagement from the various utility companies. In July 2018, the Department for Transport wrote to the remaining highway authorities operating under noticing, requesting that we adopt permit schemes in line with the planned rollout of their new Streetworks management system called Street Manager, which was due to launch in Q1 of 2019. In August 2019, Cabinet gave approval for us to exercise our powers to operate a permit scheme on all publicly maintainable streets within our highway authority boundaries. In March 2020, Cabinet made the decision that the authority would become a permit authority with effect from the 1st of April 2020, in line with the revised launch date of the Department for Transport Street Manager system. On the 1st of April 2020, the permit scheme went live, despite entering the first national lockdown for COVID, which caused the launch of Street Manager to be deferred by the Department for Transport until the 1st of July 2020. In December 2020, Network Management Unit and the Network Inspections Team, as they were known then, were tupied back into Stafford County Council from Amy and became one entity under the banner of the Network Management Unit as an interim measure. In January 2022, the Network Management Unit and the TMA Assurance Teams entered consultation to merge and become the Traffic and Network Management Team. Following this, the newly formed and branded team launched on the 2nd of May 2022. Okay. When considering the transition to a permit scheme authority, the decision was made to join the already established Western Shire's permit scheme. Several of our neighbouring highway authorities are already enrolled into the scheme, and it was decided this would offer the right level of benefits, freedom and consistency whilst allowing to draw on the knowledge and experience of our neighbouring authority colleagues. As we operate in similar areas to the other Western Shire's permit scheme authorities, we deal with a lot of the same utility companies. The benefits to works promoters of having a consistent regional message and similar ways of working were identified and considered beneficial over having to understand and adapt to different criteria and ways of working for neighbouring authorities. So the main differences of switching the schemes, notices versus permits. So the main difference is that the scheme has allowed the permit to, it's changed the direction of control from the works promoter to the highway authority. So this now allows us greater visibility and control of the work taking place on the highway network. There were a few original objectives in the members' briefing presentation from February 2020 that I wanted to touch upon. Your first objective identified was improved coordination with the aim to reduce highway occupation, delays and journey times. As we now assess each application individually upon receipt, these can be explored in greater detail and conditions can be imposed to ensure that disruption is being reduced wherever possible. For example, planning works during school holidays at relevant locations, proposing and imposing reduced durations, and restricting working and traffic management set-up hours for highly trafficked routes and requesting manual control of signals where required. The second benefit identified was increased collaboration, visibility and opportunities. So by assessing each application individually and having the team split into focused geographical areas, this increases the knowledge of their patch and the activities that are in progress, along with consideration of any new activities proposed, which allows for easier identification of collaboration opportunities. These areas are aligned currently with the district boundaries, meaning there are now 7 dedicated teams across the county, which is an increase from the historical 3 geographical teams that were in place. The third item that was outlined was increased quality of data, conditions to outline site-specific requirements. So permits allow us to send requests for amendments back to the works promoter so that information can be clarified and conditions of working agreed prior to permission being granted for the works to proceed. This functionality wasn't available to us whilst we were operating under noticing. So, for example, if the works location isn't clear or the extent of the traffic management proposed causes concern, this can be queried prior to the works commencing on site and will result in revised application, which will allow us to grant the work or issue a refusal for the works to proceed. Thank you. Next item I wanted to touch upon is permit volumes. So as you can see from the visual, there is a very large increase from when we went to noticing 2 permits.
This is partially attributed to the requirement for our own highway works to be permitted to ensure we're operating on a level playing field with the works promoters and other industries. As you can see, it dropped slightly in year 2. This is as we identified internal work streams that were exempt from requiring a permit, such as gully emptying work. This has the added benefit of streamlining the planning and notification process for our business partner for low impact activities as well. And in year 3, we experienced a large increase in permits again, which is partially attributed to an increase in activity by fibre companies to increase our superfast broadband infrastructure offerings in Staffordshire, in line with initiatives led by central government. So due to the permit scheme, you can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So due to the permit scheme launching during the COVID pandemic and the various lockdowns and restrictions that were imposed, we're still trying to understand what a typical volume of permits in a year looks like. It is a challenge to understand what the new road user behaviours are and requirements are following the national and regional lockdowns. Travel times and reasons for travel have changed, and the rise in people working from home has also changed the landscape, with weekend travel now increasing, which means that weekend working doesn't offer the same disruption-reducing impact it used to. To support this, we will be consulting on regular reviews with our network with the relevant highway teams to understand network usage and traffic volumes in the future. Thank you. So this next slide is about what's contained in the performance reports. It's split into 2 sections. So you've got the national KPIs, and then you have the operational performance measures, which have been selected by us. So the national KPIs are set by the Highways Authority and Utilities Committee for the UK, and they ensure that all highway authorities operating permit schemes are providing the same data for consideration. This allows the works promoters to understand what is required of them and how their performance is being monitored, and also the performance of the various permit schemes across England themselves are being monitored. We have had the opportunity to set our own individual operational performance measures. These do align with the other members of the Western Shire's permit scheme. Again, this offers the benefit of consistency to the relevant works promoters operating in the region and allows us to measure our successes and challenges against those of our neighbouring authorities, and to seek support and information from each other on how these are being achieved and addressed. So the next thing we're going to look at now is the outcomes from the report. So the first thing is the initial observations and successes in operating a permit scheme. So the first benefit is that we now have better control of planning and the coordination of works. As you can see from the slide, there's several categories that we've broken this down into. The first being early starts being granted to the works promoters. These requests come to us from the utility companies. We assess them on a site-by-site basis. They are usually granted when beneficial to the authority and the public, and refused when this is likely to have a negative impact on the network when considering our overall network coordination responsibilities. This is controlled more stringently in locations where the impact is likely to be greater and allows us to inform the public over a longer period of time. The second factor is extension requests. Again, these are assessed on a site-by-site basis, and we review the reasoning given along with the progress of the job to that point to consider before a decision is made. Often it is deemed that the disruption of asking for the job to be stopped on the original date and for the works promoter to return at a later date is generally considered to be greater than allowing the work to continue and get in once, do the job and be gone. So by that note, we do reserve the right to impose overrun charges for every day that work overruns until the work's completed, if we do allow the works to continue in the first instance. The third category is request to change the scope of works. So if the situation on site changes, or for whatever reason the job isn't what the works promoter envisaged it would be when they turned up, they need to contact us to notify us to modify their permit application if the circumstances on site change outside of what was submitted in their original application. We can also instruct a request that adjustments are made prior to and while the works are in progress to make sure we're keeping control of that situation as best as possible. The next topic is awaiting permission. As I touched upon earlier, by the works promoter applying for permission to work, we now have more opportunities to intervene and raise concerns about planned works before they commence on site. This is so that we can manage the location and volumes of work on the network as well as we reasonably can against demand. The need for permission allows us to better balance utility activities against the need to deliver our various highway maintenance programmes of work as well. And the last consideration is site-specific controls to control activities. So examples of typical uses of conditions on permit applications would be to request manual control at certain locations to better manage the flow of traffic, particularly at tidal flow locations, restricting working hours to avoid school drop-off and pick-up times or business shift handover times, requesting hand digging at locations if there's specialist surface materials like slabs, to reduce the risk of breakage, or to maximise the remaining space available to road users at tighter locations. You know, if we can reduce the need of a big sideways clearance needed for a machine to come in and dig, and we can allow them to hand dig and still allow the traffic to flow, we will request that. Instructing that advance warning signs for road closures are placed on site prior to the works taking place, and for letter drops to be carried out to keep the public as well informed as possible. Thank you. One thing we've identified is the increased ability to challenge and check on activities in the highway. So permits allow us to clearly see what work is taking place and compare this to what the inspectors are seeing out on the network. So in the example on the slide, the permit submitted stated there would be no impact to the carriageway at all. When the inspector arrived on site, they found that the barriers had reduced the available carriageway width enough so that only one vehicle could pass, so forcing a give and take situation. In these instances, we can send a penalty to the works promoter and an instruction for either the permit to be amended to reflect the true conditions, or we can request that your conditions on site need to be changed to reflect your permit that we've granted for you. As we know, sometimes things do go wrong. So if we do identify that a site is set up incorrectly or unsafely, we have the powers to fine the works undertaker and instruct that reasonable adjustments are made on site. In addition to this, we can now, in the worst case scenarios, revoke their permit to work and instruct that they reinstate and clear the location as soon as possible, until the works can be discussed and replanned accordingly, making the required changes to the way it's being carried out. If the works commence or continue without a valid permit in place, we now also have the powers to prosecute offenders. Thank you. The next objective was introduction of permit conditions to promote safety and reduce disruption to the public. This is helping us to build a better picture of the true circumstances on site and how these may affect the general public, including pedestrians. So we always ensure that sites are set up safely for pedestrians. This example on the screen is a quieter location where the carriageway can carry that pedestrian traffic via a temporary walkway due to there being no footway opposite for them to cross over to safely without causing undue disruption to the flow of traffic. So again, that's an example of, on a major area road, we wouldn't do that. But in certain situations, you can ensure the safe provision for pedestrians. Okay. So this one is demonstrated increase in collaborative working and being able to accurately record this and offer incentives via 50% reduced permit fee applications to the promoters. So what we have on screen is an example of one of our surface dressing preparation permits. It was Sunday working only due to the location. National Grid were recently really proactive in identifying and contacting us about a collaboration opportunity they spotted with this permit. They saw that they had this permit in place in Street Manager, and they called me on Thursday the 19th of October to discuss this. They were then on site on Sunday the 22nd of October working under our surface dressing permit to carry out overhead line repairs to minimise that disruption to the public. As such, they were offered a 50% discount on their permit fee for that. Before we moved to permits under noticing, because we didn't notice our highway works, that information wouldn't have been available to National Grid, so it does show that those opportunities are increasing. We have identified several opportunities to improve the service we offer to the public utilising the Streetworks permit scheme in the future, which we'll outline in the following slides for you, so future considerations. The first would be to continue to utilise the permit conditions to minimise the impact of work and congestion in critical locations. So requirements for working, restrictions and control are different depending on the site location. So for a residential cul-de-sac compared to a main arterial route such as the A34, we would be more or less stringent depending on what was required. We will continue to ensure that the conditions on permits reflect these differences to mitigate against disruption wherever possible. We will continue to encourage collaborative working. As demonstrated with the National Grid example, there are huge benefits to the public by us requiring permits for all work. This increases visibility for them and the works promoters to allow collaboration opportunities that were not available to us under a noticing regime. We will continue to foster good working relationships with the various work promoters to better understand each other's work activities and understand where these can be combined and completed under one application and one work site. So these on the screen are some examples of refusal reasons we've given. So we will continue to improve on the recording of the refusal reasons we're giving so we can better understand where we can try and reduce these wherever possible. We aim to capture the reasons for permits being refused so that we can review this data and understand the common reasons so we can educate the applicants as to our requirements. The benefits of doing this means there is less time, money and resource for both parties being lost for applications for work that are not viable, and in turn these efficiencies and savings can be passed on to our joint customers. So we will also continue to work with the promoters to improve the timeliness and quality of the data they're providing to us. As mentioned previously, the works permits being submitted in a timely manner will enable us to provide visibility of planned works to the public sooner so that journeys and reasons for travel can be replanned or adjusted accordingly. This one, we will continue to improve on the identification and reporting of on-site conditions and their breaches. So our inspectors currently report on any non-compliance they find on site, such as missing permitter information boards, failure to have advance warning signs out and other site compliance issues. We will continue to conduct these and explore ways of better capturing and reporting on this data. Some examples we've got on the screen. In the top left, that is New Road in Armitage. It's a BT OpenReach job and the permit number, it's not visible, it's not clear, it looks like it's been written over. The public would not be able to identify the number for that work and query that with us if they had any concerns. So they did receive a fixed penalty notice for that and a failed inspection. The middle picture at the top is Main Road in Tamworth. This is signals not being manually controlled. They were instructed to manually control this site at all times. There's nobody there, as you can see. It's just a set of signals on their own. Again, that was a failure. The top right is Mill Street in Cannock. On that example, there is no informational public board or permit board at all on that, so the public would not be able to identify who those works belong to without contacting us and asking that question. The bottom left is the Parkway in Purton. This permit, on our system, when this photo was taken, was not in progress. We were not aware that they were there. The traffic management had been set up, but there was no work zone, no activity on site, so it was causing disruption and it was showing that it hadn't yet started, so another breach there. And the bottom right, this is a good news example. It's one of ours. This shows clearly that the duration of the works is being explained, when it's starting, and there's also a permit board in the background that very clearly states our permit reference number as well, so the public have the information they need in order to replan journeys and contact us if they have any queries. Okay, the next measure would be to reduce disruption by reducing durations. It's a bit of a snapshot, I think, of, is that Cannock? Cannock at the moment, Cannock. Obviously the Love 2 work is going on. There's a lot going on. So we are working with the various utility companies, as mentioned, to better understand the operational requirements behind the various activities they carry out and how they translate into permit durations. Having a better understanding of this will allow us to challenge these where they appear to be excessive and understand where they can't be adjusted. By focusing on reducing durations, this allows us to better coordinate activities on the network and reduce the days the network is occupied by roadworks overall. We are reviewing the durations of completed works compared with the initial timescales promoted to us as well to understand where these are not correlating so that we can work with the works promoters to adjust these in the future. Due to the volume of permit applications and the increase in demand for network space, this is more important than ever to ensure that we're doing everything we can to accommodate all the work that needs to take place while balancing this with the need to keep traffic flowing. Examples of things that are causing increased demand at the moment is the levelling up funding. There's the fibre works as well, incentive initiatives. So there's a lot going on and it's very hard to manage. And the next point is the use of immediate reactive permits. Immediate permits are meant to be submitted to us within 2 hours after the works are started on site. These types of permits can't generally be refused under legislation, and they are used for the purposes of rectifying a risk to people or property, the loss of supply, or to avoid significant financial loss to the asset owner. Due to the reactive nature, we're not always able to get to these sites or be aware of them until after they've started to cause disruption and frustration to the public. So we will be carrying out a review and applying closer scrutiny to the immediate permits we receive to ensure they are fulfilling the criteria I've mentioned. Just to give you an idea of the scale of work that we're doing, on average there's about 200 open sites on the network every day and 10 network inspectors. So we do rely on the public and the bus operators, etc., reporting issues to us so that we can react to those. We would ask that if you do spot any concerns on the network relating to temporary roadworks or activities, that you report these via the report it function, and our team will pick them up and address them straight away. Okay. And the final item we wish to discuss with you today is the outline template for our proposed traffic and network management plan document. The purpose of this document will be to set out our policy and expectations for anyone who wishes to carry out various temporary activities on the Staffordshire Highway network. We will aim to set expectation levels for the services that we offer and the expectations of how the traffic and network management team operate as a whole. At this point, having reviewed the draft outline, we would ask if there's any comments about the scope of the document or any additional points that you wish to flag to consideration. Please let us know. That's it. Thank you very much.
Wow, Hayley, you talk really fast. That was a lot of information there. So, David.
I promised not to go on as long as the explanation of the report. I've got several items. Firstly, can I say, I think that the advance notices that we get of highway works are excellent. I think that where we get, I think it's a 3-month notice of long-term planned works, together with diversions by particularly the utility companies. I wish that when those come through, in many cases, what we're having to do is to point out to the utility companies that they have simply looked at the diversions on a map or on the computer, and no one has ever actually been and tried that to find out whether it's simple and whether it's workable. I've had, because I represent a rural division, directions that have been diversions that are down impassable country lanes. And when you start to get heavy lorries and all sorts of stuff, with an impossible diversion, I think it should be a requirement that somebody actually goes and looks at the diversion before they actually implement it. And with 3 months' notice, there's plenty of time to be able to do that. I think that most of the problems that we have are where we have emergency, particularly the utility companies that have problems with flooding or services where they have to get in very, very quickly. And I do appreciate that's a great difficulty. And again, that we get notice from you that that's going to happen. I notify the parish councils that are affected by that in my division. I wish they'd read the notices, because I particularly have one problem at the moment where I have a parish councillor stirring up a problem about nothing happening in the parish, and the work starts tomorrow. We did actually at one stage ask that parish councils were given guidance on a note which would go to all of them about what their role was as far as highways were concerned, and particularly notices like this. That's not actually been produced yet, and I think that we ought to perhaps have another look at that. Also, I think that the permits are probably giving you an opportunity to have better coordination of works. The big criticism that we used to have in the past was that no sooner a road had been resurfaced that somebody came along and dug it up. And I think that that's not happening to the same extent now. I also feel that one of the problems that we have is that where I think particularly utility companies come in and have a road closure, that the signs for the road closure, which usually are subcontracted by the utility company, never get taken away. And so we have signs on the side of the road saying that road's closed, and it isn't, and it hasn't been for 3 months. And I think we could do with looking at that from the permit point of view of tidying that up if we can. But I would generally say my comments are not critical. I hope you feel they're supportive. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments on that. I can give you a bit more information around the topics that you've raised. So your comments about the diversion routes not being suitable. We do actually drive the routes. We have 3 technicians across the county, and their job is when the applications come in to drive those diversion routes to make sure they are suitable for HGVs, there's no low bridges, etc., and that the road is in a good enough state to carry the additional traffic while that's taking place. And if not, they do raise that with the maintenance teams. With regards to diversion routes, they do have to be the same category of street or higher. So we would never send something from an A road down a country lane, as you say. People will do that regardless. We can't stop that behaviour. But the actual approved diversion routes that go out, they are always the same category of street or higher to make sure that they are suitable for the traffic using it. But if you have any individual circumstances where you feel that hasn't been addressed, please let me know, and I can pick those up and look into them a bit more for you. As you've pointed out, the improvements to newly surfaced streets being dug up. Yes, we are putting Section 58 protections in place. They can be imposed for up to a maximum of 3 years after works have been completed, as you say, to prevent that being dug up and disturbed during that period. There are 2 exceptions to that under the permitting scheme. That is immediate notices. They need to go on because it's a risk that we can't stop, or new connections to residents or properties. So we do manage that as best we can, so thank you for that. It's interesting you picked up on the signage. We can actually issue Section 74 overrun charges to the utility companies for any signage left behind. So again, if you do spot anything out on the network, please use the report it function to make us aware. Our traffic and network inspectors will go out and take photos of that. They will identify who they belong to, and we will then contact that company and, if applicable, apply any charges for them to any penalties until they're collected and the highway is clear again. Thank you.
Gemma, one other point that I don't think falls directly into your responsibility, it falls into the department, but my understanding is that the arrears by certain utility companies on the payment of penalties and various items is amongst the worst of the unpaid accounts that we have within the council. And I just wonder whether, if someone are massively in arrears, and I think there is one utility company that's falling into that category, whether we would be in a position to refuse to issue a permit until they bring their payments up to date.
Yes, we have had a recent situation with a utility company where their outstanding debt for planned road closures was far too high. It was a combination of that some of the money was with us, but it hadn't been allocated to the correct place. That's now been rectified. Our finance team have been working really hard on that with the central finance team to rectify. We did impose temporary sanctions on them. So due to the debt being related to planned road closures not being paid for and PO numbers not being supplied, we suspended planned road closure payments. They had to be made up front, or they didn't get a road closure until that situation was brought back under control, which we are happy to say it's now right down to a very manageable level again. So yes, there are things that we can utilise depending on the situation to make sure we're driving the right behaviours from these works promoters. Okay.
Just,
Sam.
Just to add as well, we are having regular performance meetings now with the big 6 utilities, and that includes finance. So we are setting kind of expectations in terms of not building it or accruing any debt to an acceptable level. So again, it's monitoring, it's keeping on top of this before it gets too large or out of hand. So hopefully it helps them not being put onto any sanctions, and it helps us obviously bring the money in for the work and the costs borne.
Sam?
Thank you. You know, when you say about that, like if we see issues, to report it via the app, and is there something that you can have that you can draw off the local members personally, rather than going through that app? Because we tend to be a lot on the ground. I mean, I could list so much stuff. I've written it as I've gone along, and I can click with that one, I can click with that one, I can click with that one. But going through the app doesn't always mean it gets done, or you don't understand what we're struggling with as in residents-wise. Yeah. So we have a resident, it's like traffic lights. Traffic lights are the biggest bugbear of my life because they break down. I ring the number, I say, okay, we've got no lights, I've got bedlam on the traffic, on the roads, but nothing happens. And 10 to 1, I'll end up ringing the company themselves and saying, can you go out and sort your traffic lights out? Yeah. I think I contacted Severn Trent the other week via Twitter to go out and sort their lights because I got that much abuse from residents because those lights weren't fixed. And I feel we have that much knowledge on the ground that we should be giving it you personally rather than going through the app. It's like I had a diversion put through the other day, and I was like, why have you put a diversion through housing when you could have just run it across the road? Which they did change for me. I did go to Cheryl and say this, and this, and she did get it changed for me. But I just think sometimes if you've got our comments and our complaints, you can analyse that better than us going through the apps, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. So yeah, we do have the report it function. You can also email to our team directly, Traffic and Network inbox, and our team will pick that up within working hours. We can also share with you internally our contact list, which shows you the coordination managers and the officers for each district area as well, so you know who your regular points of contact are. And you know, if it is an earlier intervention, then I don't want to wait for an email, or we haven't got time to wait for an email to be picked up, you can ring the relevant person and they will give you their immediate attention. If that would be useful.
Just one thing I've thought of, sorry. So Severn Trent, they applied for a road closure on the Cannock Road in Heath Hayes. They've done it twice now, but they've never turned up. So we're making the residents aware that there's going to be a road closure here. Use diversion routes, don't necessarily try to attempt that road, yet they don't turn up. And that is so frustrating. Thank you.
So as Lee's touched on before, we are working with the various utility companies. We are aware of the concerns that are coming in for specific promoters. We do have these scorecards that do sort of mirror the metrics in the annual reports. We are trying to drive these behaviours down, but we do really appreciate the input from you all, telling us about the concerns you're seeing on the ground, the frustrations that are being caused to the public by our joint customers. You know, their customers are our customers. We need to be working together to make sure that we're delivering the right services to them in a timely manner. So yeah, we'll take that on board, and I'll take that away and speak to them next time we meet. Thank you.
Graham?
Thank you, Chair. 2 points, but I'd like to start with saying over the last 12 months, I have certainly noticed a difference since we brought inspectors back in-house and all the efforts that have gone in. So well done, Highways. I really do think you've done an amazing job of turning things around, because it was quite awful. So my first point is, when you mentioned National Grid, I wasn't quite sure whether all these utility companies and highways have access to when roadworks, or do you actually push it out and say, you know, the XYZ lane is going to be dug up by Virgin on such and such a date. So if you want any works on XYZ lane, you know, you make sure that you do those between, otherwise your permit will double, or if you do it in this time, your permit will half. If you do it outside that, you'll be paying maximum. So that's one thing I wasn't quite sure. I didn't understand totally what you're getting at. So if you can have a little bit more explanation about how you get them to work together. The second one is, as James will know, we bring this up quite regularly, is about notices around roadworks. I think most councillors at one stage or another have brought this up. And it's about informing residents. Now, I see that we do ask that people put up the permit number, how long it's going to be, and what the works are for, except for emergency works. And I don't think that they do this on emergency works. Now, you might correct me, but I've seen recent emergency works, and all it is a set of traffic lights gone up, and they're working on it, and nobody knows. And then I get a telephone call or an email or something like that saying what's going on, etc. So I think that we should up the fines for emergency works without notices. It's really, really important. It cuts our post bag down massively, having, or certainly mine anyway, having a notice there that explains what's going on. And I think probably Severn Trent are about the worst of the utility companies, but they are getting better. Since we pointed out, all they're doing is damaging their own brand. But anyway, if you could address those points, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Your first point around the collaboration. Sorry, I know I was a bit nervous if I did race through it a little bit. So we have access, everybody in England works to a Department for Transport system called Street Manager. Whenever a permit is submitted, it's then visible to everybody on that system, so everybody can see what's going on where and what's already planned in. They can see whether it's a pending status, whether it's been approved, or whether it's in progress, etc. So that is one tool that they can use in order to identify any works that they can either collaborate with or that they need to plan around. With regards to deeper coordination, we do carry out statutory quarterly meetings with all of the works promoters, including our internal work streams, to discuss coordination on the network and to ensure that major schemes are being broadcast to the utility companies and making them aware this will be starting in January. You have 2 months now to get any planned work done. Either you do it before they go in, you do it while they're in, or you wait 3 years. So until the protected period has passed. So we are doing that work on a quarterly basis as well. And those are face-to-face meetings that we hold with them, and there is mandatory attendance from all of the utility companies as well. So yeah, we are trying to improve that, and collaboration is a huge focus of ours to make sure we are, the demand is higher than ever. We need to be making sure we're reducing that wherever possible and combining work streams. Obviously, you can't put electric and water together, but there are things you can do to minimise that. Notices around works. Immediate permits are slightly different to planned works. So it is a statutory requirement. They have to have an information board out on site at all times. If they don't, that is a low risk failure, and they have 4 hours to rectify that if there's no information board there. Most of the utilities now use combined permit and information boards. They are different boards, but they tend to merge them together. Planned works, it needs to be out from the minute the works start. The idea is the first thing that goes out is your barrier with your permit board number on, and then they expand the works out, and when they collect back in, that's the last thing that should be being removed. With immediate works, they have until 10 a.m. the next working day to get that permit reference out, because that allows them time to get to site, identify what needs to be done, speak to their office to get that permit raised, gives us time to review it and make any adjustments, and then that permit board goes out with the permit number the next morning. And so you are right, you probably are seeing some immediate permits on day one that don't have that information out there. With regards to fines for those not being out, the fines are set it's £120, reduced to £80 if paid within 28 days. For failure to have a permit board on site, it is a mandatory condition that they should be doing. It's included on every single permit application. So we can't change the level of the fine, but we can change our focus to make sure we're addressing those a lot more and keeping more of an eye out for it. But from what I was looking at last week, it is a very common thing that's been picked up on every site when they're identifying it.
Philippa.
Thank you. You touched upon the 7 teams and the way that they're structured out. It would be, I think all of us would agree, it would be really useful to know who our contacts are. And again, I think it would be really useful if we could spend some time with them to discuss our local knowledge. And like we work with our highways officer, they see what our concerns are and our impacts on our roads locally, and we go out with them and show them directly what we're concerned about. I think that would be something that would potentially work really well here, because it's good to have that relationship with who you're talking to and what issues are coming through. You did feature Cannock when you popped it up on your map there, sorry. And it showed, like on that one stretch of road, we've got 4 or 5 sort of providers in. I think it was Cadnet at the time, but that's on a road that has had massive delays all over the summer for works that have been, you know, necessary and required. But the residents don't understand that, and they also don't understand that it's not highways, it's Cadnet or National Grid. And I think that's where the issues for me comes. They put the notice out and the communications out, but unless we work as councillors or within our community through the parishes, that information doesn't reach the residents. So unless I put a notice out and say it's Cadnet doing that work, it's Eon doing that work, or National Grid. Now, National Grid listened to us last year and created a specific Facebook page for each little resident area, and that worked really well. They carded, but then when it gets to be a bigger street, they can't do it, or they haven't done it the same. And I think that that's where we need to push the communication back. They need to be communicating, because their customers are the ones that are getting that electricity supply or gas supply, and it's our road that's being affected. And I think we really need to push that message back to them, that their communication is poor and we're trying to do their job for them in that respect. And then on to the amendments with regards to permits. Is there a delay? So if we say that we've gone out and seen that they're encroaching onto the roadway, how quickly do they have to get that permit amended? And have we got the staffing capacity to keep up with these amendments that are needed? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, completely agree. We can start to make some moves to set up some monthly meetings, or for the teams to come out and spend the day with you on the network and see the concerns that are going on and try and plan around those where we can. We are aware that comms is a big area of focus for us now that the team is established and we've got the day-to-day running well. We now are looking at improvement, and the first thing we've identified is improved coordination and communication. So we would like to work with you all to understand your requirements, to make sure that we're getting the right information to the public at the right time. So yeah, very happy to take that offline and discuss that further with you. With regards to the amendments, yes, there is a delay. If we submit a change to them to say you need to change this, they have 48 hours to make that amendment. And amend their permit application accordingly. The same if they ask us for an amendment, we have 48 hours to review that and go back. So unfortunately there is a bit of a lag, but we do try and speed it up where possible, and we have found that, you know, our inspectors talking to them on site does seem to get the quickest solutions to the problems, and the permit sort of lags behind and catches up as we go through. So yeah, okay, thank you.
Charlotte.
Chair, I suppose one of the most frustrating things for residents is when they come across an obstruction in the road with traffic lights or without traffic lights, and there's no activity. So how do you pick up on that, and how much are they fined for the fact that they're creating real concerns and inconvenience to residents when they're actually not doing any work on the ground? And also connected to that is when the roadworks are done but the barriers are left on the roadside. So what are the enforcement powers you have to, one, fine them for, you know, creating the obstruction with no activity, and when they leave barriers and other extraneous items on the road, which may cause inconvenience, but just looks a complete mess.
So we can, in the conditions on the permit, specify their working hours under one of the conditions. So we can say to them, your traffic management hours may be different to your actual working hours. We understand that you might not be able to take the signals down at night, but we expect you to work between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. in this specific location. Again, we can increase that if it's somewhere in a town centre where we know the disruption is huge. It's, you know, we want you to work as early in the morning as you can to as late as night as you can without disturbing any residents. If they aren't adhering to this and it's stated in the permit conditions, we can issue a fixed penalty notice. Again, it's £120 mitigated down to 80 if paid promptly. We're finding that the fees aren't necessarily enough of a deterrent. But that is apparently being reviewed at central government at the moment to see if those levels can be adjusted, because £80 these days it's not really enough. So we can issue fixed penalty notices. These are issued in lieu of prosecution, so if there are repeat offenders and people aren't doing what they need to be doing, you know, we can choose not to issue an FPN and go to prosecution if there's an appetite for that. We can also duration challenge permits retrospectively, so we can say, yes, you have a 5-day duration, and then we're being informed on day 3 that there's been no activity for the last 2 days. We can duration challenge them down and say, get this done today. So we do have those tools in the kit, and we can impose Section 74 overrun charges under the NERSA legislation, New Roads and Street Works Act, to penalise these companies who are leaving equipment out on site, or leaving open excavations, or not leaving a site as they found it when they got there. They are on a scale depending on the category of the street. So the lowest charges is £250 a day. Category A road, Category 1 road would be up to £10,000 a day. So, but then we do enter into mitigation discussions and mitigate those down depending on the individual circumstances of that job and the impact that it had to the public.
Do you rely on members of the public to tell you about inactivity, or do your inspectors do that? And I should add, thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
Thank you very much. We rely on both, if we're honest. As I mentioned, we have on average 200 open sites every day and 10 inspectors across the county. Unfortunately, they can't be everywhere at once. So we do rely on reports from members of the public, from yourselves, from the bus operators, saying that there's a road closure popped up here, what's going on? And we then reactively go out and have a look at what the situation is and apply any measures that are needed. So yeah, it's a bit of a two-pronged approach. We do what we can with the resource we have, but we are very, very welcoming of feedback from other people who are spotting things. Thank you.
Philip?
No, thank you, Chair. Where do I start? Okay, so you can have emergency closures, and I fully accept that. And we had one in Uttoxeter, and so we had to close the road, fair enough. And then it took the utility company over 2 months to actually repair it, and it wasn't for the fact that I kept emailing James and asked for James's help in it, you know. So why, you know, we had an emergency, fair enough, but why, you know, what can we do to make these utility companies get on and do the work? Meanwhile, we've got a main route through Uttoxeter with traffic lights on. You know, the council are complaining all the time, the residents are complaining, and nothing got done. Then we go to the other extreme where we had some work done in the high street, and it was completed virtually on the first day, but they left the traffic management stuff in place for over a week, and people were saying, well, if they finished the work, why we still got it going? Then we have other issues where you had my town at a standstill, and I did get in touch with you on the day, where, yeah, we got the right route in, and we got the traffic lights up, but nobody thought about the timings of the traffic. So because the way it was operating meant that one way you'd got queues of about nearly 3/4 of a mile because they had to let traffic come down the hill which met him at a roundabout, but the traffic coming the other way were fine. So there were two guys drinking a cup of tea by a van with their fluorescent jackets on, and I stopped on my way to work and said, look guys, the timings here aren't right. Can you change them? And I got told, nothing to do with us, mate, you know, calling me mate. I mean, they did get sorted out when I wrote to the chief executive of the council. But, you know, I was trying to help, saying, you need to just alter the timings a bit, but nobody was interested. So that's finishing it. So things finishing early. I must say that we've got some major roadworks in Uttoxeter at the moment, and the way in which that was managed there, our roadworks, the highways, was brilliant. I was notified by email each step of the process where local businesses and residents were notified of what we're doing. I met the guys that are actually doing the work last week. They talked me through all what's happening. It's all been done at night, and as a consequence, we've got major roadworks being done and little interruption to traffic. So it does work if we get it right. Another problem I had with one of the utility companies is they dug our marketplace up and they removed some cobbles to put a gas supply in. It took me 18 months to get them to reinstate the cobbles. Why did that take so long, and why can't they be forced to put it back in order, you know, virtually straight away? And lastly is we have a major events in the town from the race course, and what can I do? I know that I've got in touch with you a few weeks ago, and that I said to them, you need to send our network people all your race day dates so you're aware. What can we do to encourage them to do that every year? Because I can't always remember to say to them, oh, send your dates through. Is there something we can put in process where we know we've got Uttoxeter race course and we know that they have race days? And if we have roadworks within the town, it does have a major impact. But other than that, I mean, it's got a lot better. And I think that, say, with the work that's going on over the next 3 or 4 weeks in Uttoxeter, if it's managed well, it's fine. The only other thing we notice is that sometimes the diversion notices are not particularly good and cause a lot of confusion. I don't know whether it's just in my town, but quite away a lot of the county, so we just need to be aware. And we get like road closure notices miles away from where the road's closed, so people don't really know, well, what road is closed. I don't know how we can sort that out. Thank you.
Thank you. With regards to the individual issues that you've raised about that job going on for 2 months and one taking a day at the TM being enough, if you want to send me the information, I'll have a look into those for you and try and get some specific answers to those. Tidal flow is something we ask them to consider, and that's why we do ask for manual control at certain locations to make sure that they do have operatives looking both ways and making sure they're adjusting that. So if that's not being done, and that's a specific condition of their permit, please let us know. And again, it's an offence that we can issue a fixed penalty notice for not adhering to that requirement. We've touched on the comms improvement before. We are aware that that's something that we would like to improve for ourselves to make sure we're getting as much information out as we can. The cobbles defect that you've mentioned, the legislation has recently changed, and we are providing our feedback to the Department for Transport that we are experiencing some problems in people not addressing their defective work in a timely manner. And what recourses are available to us. There's several options we can consider. We can consider saying to them, we're going to drop the amount of planned work you're allowed to have until you rectify your outstanding defective work. We can prosecute, which, you know, which is not the way we really want to go unless there is an appetite for it. Or we can work closely with them as we've established these monthly scorecards. That is a metric that's measured your outstanding defects. How many have you got? How long have they been there? How long have they been there? How are you tackling that? So we are trying to proactively every month make sure that they're addressing those. With regards to the dates for events, the race course, I used to cover Uttoxeter, so I know the pain when that goes wrong. So we have it on our list for our managers. It's an annual task that we're asking them to do, that we're asking them to, in your area, what locations are there? Go and proactively go to those businesses and ask for those dates. You know, don't rely on them coming to you. Please go to them and you know, we consider that part of our network duty, our network management duty, to collect that information to make sure we're making that available to our officers so they can make the appropriate decisions when they're assessing applications. Diversion notices and signage. Again, if there's any specific situations, we can have a look into that for you, but there is a lot of regulation and legislation behind where that signage is placed, meterage distances, all that sort of stuff on routes. So it may be that it might not be the most intuitive, but that's the legal requirement, which is why it is where it is. So even if it doesn't appear to make much sense on the ground, but do appreciate the confusion that does sometimes cause. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I've just got a couple of points. Really pleased with this report. So well done, Hayley, and thanks for presenting it. It was a race through, but it was good. Really pleased with the better coordination with utility companies all trying to work together, because it took me longer to get out of Tamworth than it did to do the rest of the journey. I think we've got the whole of the county's traffic lights just in Tamworth, but then Cannock appear to have loads as well. So. Question about 7 teams across county. Why not 8? Because we've got 8 boroughs and districts. Is somebody going to miss out? So just why 7? I'm really concerned and laughable really at the fine of £120. That's £120 in someone's back pocket. When you're dealing with major companies like we are, 120 quid is nothing. And it takes me back to the same questions about road traffic fines for parking, 80 quid. You know, we need to hit these people where it hurts, and that's in the money. And £120, I'm sorry, but I find that quite laughable, and I know it's not your fault. That's got to be something that central government change, and I hope James and his team are really banging that drum, because, you know, we don't want to hit anybody hard, but we also want people to behave on our networks as they should be. So that's just more of a comment. And I agree with what everybody said about metal frames, A-boards and sandbags. Our depot at Tamworth is full of them, because it just appears that nobody wants to take away what they've put up in the first place. And I agree with all the comments about, you know, road traffic signs and traffic lights going up, and then 3 days later somebody might appear. Just around the corner from where I live, we had a burst water main, so Severn Trent come, and they start the work and then go through a gas main. It then took 3 weeks to get the part from Germany, so the whole of this road, which is a terraced road, nobody could go up or down it, which meant by me was really quiet, but 3 weeks to get a part from Germany. It is quite frustrating. So that's my take on it all. Just one thing, James, traffic and network management plan. Now, whilst I've got it up on Peter's computer, it's a lot of bullet points, so I agree with the format and with the way we're going with it. Are we going to get a report on it? Because it's just bullet points on what we're going to do. So 7.1, understand the network. 7.2, what is the highway asset? So is there a report coming? We're just being asked to agree the format that you're going to take to do it first. Did you want to come in on that, James?
Yeah, happy to come in, Chair. Yeah,
I got a little bit confused. I was like, yeah, I agree with all the bullet points, but where's the detail? I thought I'd missed a report somewhere.
No, that's fine. I think your observation's absolutely right. It is the format. Is the format correct? Are the headings and the content headings the correct things that you'd expect to see? And wanting that report, are there any other ideas in terms of the timescale for populating that document? I'm going to look to Hayley and Lee again to help me out.
Yeah, I think we're looking time-wise, if you're agreeable on the format and the framework of the traffic network plan, we're looking probably springtime to come back to kind of look at the content and agree the format, similar to how we did with the high amp.
Just members, it's just something I picked on. Are we happy with that format? And the report will be populated going forwards. Just wanted to check that I hadn't missed something then. So that's brilliant. If there are no further questions, we've got 2 recommendations. Obviously to review the year 1 and 2 annual street works permit scheme and comment on the draft format and approach taken with the proposed traffic and network management plan. Happy with those 2 recommendations for both of those documents. That's agreed. Thank you very much, ladies and gents. Well done, Hayley. You did really, really well. And Lee, you were very quiet today, I must say.
I defer to my more experienced colleague.
Okay, that's brilliant. So you're free to leave, and we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you.
Which I believe is the work programme. Are we happy? Now, I'm really sorry that we've had to put extra meetings in this year. Well, I'm not sorry really, but because we've got loads of work to cover, which means that we're really, really busy members, and I hope that the executive leadership team have noticed how busy we are. Have you got anything you wish to comment on, Jonathan?
It's just a couple of greens, Chairman, that need your approval, and since publication of the work programme, you've received a request from Councillor Simon Tagg about deferring the natural environment strategy item to
It's sometime next year, I think. Oh no, December meeting.
Yes, that's right, sorry.
Yeah, happy with that. If it's not ready, it's not ready. So I'd rather have the report ready for us all to do and scrutinise properly rather than...
And there was just the point, Chairman, to remind members if they haven't done their induction for the site visit on the 22nd, just to encourage them to do that because they know exactly who's done it and who's not.
Okay, so if you haven't done that, guys, we really need that. You won't be going on site unless you've done it. So if you haven't done it, get it done quickly. Sam, did you want to comment?
Just remind them to answer the correct question. Which one was it, Jonathan?
South walls. It was North walls.
It was North walls.
It should be South walls. Don't put North walls because you'll be in the wrong place. David?
Chairman, can I suggest when you're at corporate overview and scrutiny that we look at scrutinising the communications section? It doesn't seem to be scrutinised by anybody, and we would seem to be the obvious committee to do it. But nobody looks at what they do.
Okay.
I'd just say, Chairman, comms falls under John Tradewell's directorate, which is scrutinised by corporate.
Yep. That's what you just said. Corporate scrutiny. Okay, that's the work programme, and I think that's it. Just check. Obviously, the date of the next meeting, Wednesday the 22nd of November at 2:30. Item 8, exclusion of the public. We haven't got anything to exclude the public, and there isn't any public here. So on that note, I will thank you all for your attendance this morning, and I close the meeting at 11:55. Thank you very much.